if you think you know everything, wow, how small.
Yeah.
How small your world must be, because I think that's actually like the hallmark of a lack of intelligence, is to think you're the smartest person in the room. I think there's something to learn from everybody. So you can just rely on what you have in your brain and keep doing what you're doing, but you're never going to be as successful without your team, right? Your team is what makes you great. I went on LinkedIn. I put up like this crazy post and it said like COVID job seeker. And I listed like all my digital marketing skills, basically how I could help lawyers build relationships online. And by the end of the week, I had 9 firms that had reached out to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Ooh.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Breaking Rank. I am your host, Diana Lauritson, and I am here with my great friend, fellow LMA International Board member, and founder of By Aries, Jessica Aries.
Thank you for having
Hello,
me.
Jessica.
Hi. Good
Hi.
to see you. Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
We've spent the weekend together.
I know, that's
So,
true.
or the last few days anyway, at a board meeting. But it is so great to have you on the show today.
Yeah.
I have so many things I want to ask you.
Oh, no.
And I will start out kind of in the usual way of basically just asking, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you grow up?
How did I grow up? So I guess I didn't have the most traditional kind of upbringing. But it's not that unusual. Now that I've heard some of the other board member stories. So I was raised by a single parent in Austin, Texas. I'm a second generation Austinite, which is a bit rare. And I was raised in kind of a multicultural family. So my mom is white and my dad is Hispanic, Latino. And I had basically the type of upbringing I had from my childhood with my mom. In the beginning was a little bit tougher, but my mom went to night school, worked on her MBA, really moved up the ranks in the tech field in Austin, and honestly built a beautiful, wonderful life and childhood for me. So I feel very privileged in that sense, but I also am very cognizant that that's probably not the usual experience for most people who grow up in a single parent home. I had a very supportive grandparents. Grew up in a Catholic family, so lots of cousins, lots of uncles and aunts who are always involved in like helping my mom when I was a kid, like taking care of me, watching me, helping to get me to things like, basketball practice, t-ball, those types of things I was interested in. So I had like this huge family. I say in many ways, like I'm yes, my mother's daughter, but I'm like the child of my family in many ways, because I had aunts and uncles and everyone who was involved in helping to raise me. Even like when I went to college, our priest had raised money for me to go to college. Like he had been collecting funds from like the time I was like born to help send me to college. So in a weird way, like all of these,
it was the whole it takes a village. Thing.
Very much so. So I was very, I guess, humbled by that. Like I didn't realize so many people felt responsibility in some way for like my success. It also puts a lot of pressure though on you as like a kid when you have a single parent who's worked so hard and so many people who've like poured into you, you feel a bit of an obligation to have a certain level of success in their eyes, right? So, but yeah, I honestly, I had a wonderful childhood from that perspective.
What was your relationship with your dad like?
Oh, weird. So as a small child, when he was like engaged, he was wonderful. He's actually a lot of the reason why I love technology now. A lot of the reason why I love like anything to do with computers. Like I remember I have memories building computers on the floor in our garage together. Like, and he was teaching me like where RAM goes and where's the hard drive go. And I mean, I was like 6, right? And he's actually one of the first people who like introduced me to computers and had me like working with a mouse when they first came out on a computer. Like he taught me DOS and like he was very engaged in technology. He was a network engineer, but he had addiction problems. He had a lot of issues with alcohol, things like that. And he never kind of grew up,
Yeah.
He'd have a job for a while, for a few years, lose it, go to jail, come back.
Yeah.
He got remarried. I have several half siblings, some that he doesn't even know about, that they've reached out to me on
Me
like
too.
Facebook.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
what? You're my half brother? And
I've met a few on MySpace
yeah.
from back in the day. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's been weird. I think as an adult, like all of his children weirdly are quite successful
Hmm.
despite everything that we've kind of gone through with our rocky relationship. We all have different relationships with him. I think he
Hmm.
was most engaged in my life, just because my mom and him were like childhood sweethearts. And I
Mm.
think he had, I'm the oldest of, well, I was going to say five, but
However
six.
many.
Yeah, however
Yeah.
many. I have, we're still learning,
Yeah.
discovering. But I think it's really cool because us as siblings have been very intentional about maintaining a relationship as
Hmm.
adults, even though we didn't have maybe that childhood relationship, that the sibling relationship we wished we would have had.
Hmm.
So it's been an interesting experience, though. Like all of us, in some way, shape, or form, have like our own areas of success and have been influenced a little bit by him.
Hmm.
So it's like weird to have like none of us have his last name. None of us acknowledge him. Like he wasn't invited to my wedding. He wasn't, because he's just not been a very engaged person in my life. So it's kind of weird to have this person who had so much influence in these key moments in your life, but is not really a part of your life.
Yeah.
Yet you have this connection in this weird way to all these siblings that you're
Yeah.
discovering and uncovering along
That's
the way.
great, though, to be
Yeah.
able to have that relationship with them. I mean, I don't talk to as many of my half brothers and sisters, but I was an aunt when I was born, because my dad was so much older and had so many kids that I had, brothers and sisters who would babysit me, and they were in their 40s when I was like a little girl, I think. Could be mathing wrong, but yeah. So, totally get that. Interesting connections that you have with the different sides of your family and just shaping who you've become. And so you went to college,
Mm-hmm.
and then what made you decide you wanted to be a lawyer?
Well, so I was in speech and debate in high school and I loved it. And I always thought like, ooh, could this be like a job, right? Like to
Mhm.
debate people and to argue different points. And my mom kind of like cultivated this idea of either, like she was like, you either go to business school and work in technology, because that's what Austin is pretty much known for, or you like go to law school and maybe you could do something else with all these different things. And I was really into like international cultures at the time and like had traveled some. And I studied abroad in Spain and I learned French and I learned all these like languages and I was like, maybe I'll do like international law. And then I like got into it and I hated it.
Mm.
And I ultimately decided, well, my school had this program, this IT and privacy law program,
Mhm.
and I was like studying my JD at this time, and I was like, well, I don't really love the international law stuff, but maybe this IT and like maybe I can still work in tech with a JD, and
Mhm.
so I ended up doing a joint JD LLM program, which is a master's of law in IT and privacy law. And when I graduated, well, first of all, when I graduated college, just so you know, it was 2008. So what was happening in 2008? Not a lot of great stuff for
Yeah. Yeah.
for college
Not a lot of
students.
jobs
So
available.
no.
Yeah.
So law school felt like a natural kind of progression of that, and I was already interested in it. And so then when I graduated law school, my first few jobs were in like the HIPAA high tech, and I just really
Mm.
healthcare didn't love it, and was like, I don't think I could do this for the rest of my life. And I was writing for a top ABA blog at the time, like it was
Mhm.
called Social Media Law Student, with Rex Gradeless, who's now an attorney in St. Louis, and he was like teaching me all this SEO stuff, and was like, "Here's what I want for your articles moving forward." And I was learning all this stuff about content strategy. And I was like, "Could this be a job? Like, could I do something with content strategy?" And I didn't know what it was called, but then I like Googled. I was like, "There's this thing called the Legal Marketing Association. What is this?"
Yes.
Right? And I found Nancy Merlin on
Mm.
Twitter. This was like in 2009, like when Twitter just launched.
Shout out to Nancy.
Yeah, shout out to Nancy. And I like started following her and I was like, who's this lady? She has the coolest job. Like, I want to be her when I grow up, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm a big stalker on the internet. So when I find someone who has a really cool job, I like just read like everything she put out and was just consuming anything and every Nancy. I really stalked you a lot. But it like uncovered this whole career that I didn't even realize existed through her social media presence. And so I'm just really grateful to that because
Yeah.
I learned so much about career opportunities and then ultimately like transitioned into a marketing role in a firm. So
Yeah, so you moved in, you went from practicing law to becoming a legal marketer, which I actually see more and more lawyers who have done that. I've had lawyers that have worked on my teams before. And so it's not very uncommon or as uncommon as people might think.
Hmm.
There's always the question of why would you want to be a legal marketer if you've been a lawyer before? And the other question is, why would you want to be a lawyer if you've worked in a law firm before? No, we love lawyers.
We love
We
lawyers.
love lawyers.
Lawyers have hard jobs.
Hmm.
They work a lot of hours, and the expectations from clients are often very unrealistic,
Hmm.
or they're, sorry, clients, sometimes a little delusional.
Hmm.
I mean, and especially when I worked in the healthcare, some of the things we would see, I was like, that's so you can't do that. Like, how do we tell them they can't? But that was like a business. They had a business case for using it in that way. And it's like,
Hmm.
how do you explain though? Like, you're going to get sued if you do, like it felt like a lot of those crucial conversations that were
Hmm.
very uncomfortable. And I just, I would have rather have different types of crucial conversations every day
Yeah.
than those. And I was like, this is just not a fit for me. And that's okay. Like, it's okay. Yes, I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and I'm not going to be a lawyer, and I have to call mom up and the whole family who raised me and be like, by the way, that law school I said I was going to go to, I'm not actually going to do that.
Yes.
Right.
How was that conversation?
Well, at first my mom was like, well, why don't you just sleep on it? Like, maybe, and I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And she could tell, I think, by the seriousness in my voice that like, I'm not doing it. And I think she was like, oh, okay, well, what is your alternative plan? Because that's my mom. My mom, the polished businesswoman, was like, well, what's the alternative plan? You just can't come and say, I'm not doing this, right? And even as a child, like when I was little, my mom, if I wanted to do anything, I had to have a plan, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
what's the alternative plan? And so I didn't build her a PowerPoint presentation, but it felt like I was making the PowerPoint presentation of like, there's this thing called legal marketing, and I want to do this, and it's the business side of law. And
Mhm.
she liked the business side of law, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
that resonated with her. So then telling her like, if there's these different opportunities, and I think I want to move back to Texas, and kind of the rest went from there. So she was open to it once I told her there are job prospects, there are
Yes.
opportunities.
And even then, I mean, the legal marketing field has evolved so much. Every year it evolves. I mean, I hear stories of people who worked in legal marketing back in like the late 80s or the 90s. And then I think about my journey of working in it just for the past like 15 years or so. And it has changed so much. Our roles, how our roles are segmented, what our titles look like, all of those things. So when you got into legal marketing, what was that journey like for you?
Well, I moved up really quickly in legal marketing, and I'm not quite sure. I have theories on why I progressed really quickly, but I started out in like a marketing kind of specialist role, moved up to marketing manager, switched to it was a B2C firm that I first started working at, which is business to consumer type of
Mhm.
firm, which was very high volume and was a lot of like lead gen. And I realized like there's this whole other world of like the B2B side that I don't know. So I applied to a job to do basically proposal writing, RFP responses. And I had to take like kind of a career backwards step
Mhm.
because I became a marketing coordinator. So I took, kind of a pay cut and stuff and went to do that because I was like, I think this is a skill I need to learn. And basically worked as a marketing coordinator, just learning under my boss how to write RFP responses, how to formulate the messaging and things for business clients, and moved up pretty quickly in that role. I became a marketing manager really quickly, and then I left there to become a BD manager, and then I ran BD tech for an analog global firm, and then I became an executive director. So
Mm.
I went very quickly,
Yeah.
um, kind of through my career. I think that all happened in like 6 years.
Mm.
And I
Yeah, that's
attribute,
very fast.
yeah, I attribute a lot of that to right place, right time, but also being well versed in like how to express my value, how to
Mhm.
communicate my value. Like I think so much of what we do as marketers is explain the value of our lawyers. We're actually great communicators at expressing value. We just aren't always the best at communicating our own.
Mhm.
Um, and I've always been that type of person that documented every single like data point that I could, every single KPI, and then understood the change and then could communicate it. Um, and so in every annual review, every salary negotiation, every anything, I had data always to back everything that I said
Yeah.
or qualitative examples of like things that I was helping execute that were important to the firm. So I think that's why I got lots of opportunities to move up very quickly and knew kind of how to position myself in that. But it doesn't, I don't think it was a natural skill. I think it's like, I think we as marketers have that naturally. I don't think most of us think to do that for ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Take notes, everyone, because that is a great skill to have, to be able to demonstrate your value. And coming from the lawyer side and then working in legal marketing, you know that a lot of times lawyers question us on the value that we bring to the table. Are we a cost center or are we a revenue generator? And how do we prove that? Because we can work with them on pitches and proposals and those kinds of things. But if we're not the ones actually out there closing the deal,
Yep.
sometimes the work that we put into helping the lawyers be successful can be forgotten or overlooked. So was it challenging for you to come from being a lawyer to having to deal with lawyers? Because usually in law firms, they say lawyer or non-lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
but you are not a non-lawyer. You are a lawyer. So how different was that for you?
Well, I mean, I would always like level set too. Like whenever a lawyer was being a lawyer, I had a few like that where they were just like, oh, I'm a partner and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I have as many law degrees as you. That's great. We're not here to like talk about who has more credentials on the wall. We're here to talk about business and how we develop them, how we talk about, like how do we generate leads? How do we generate opportunities? And I think it's just kind of level setting like, yes, you're smart. So am I. Like, let's get past that, beyond that, and let's talk about like what we're really here to do today, which is create opportunities, generate business. And I think it's getting on that level set with them. Like yes, I know you're brilliant in everything that you do. Like clearly, like only 1% of people are lawyers. You're clearly brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Like that's great. We got that. And I think that's, I wish more legal marketers felt that confident in talking, I think, to lawyers sometimes that way. But I think it takes a bit of time with lawyers and understanding kind of how they operate to be able to kind of be that assertive. And that I also think it's how you deliver it, right? That could piss some lawyers off, right?
Definitely.
Like
some do not feel that you have the right to talk to them.
Yes.
To respond to the way they talk to you.
Yes. Yeah. And that is, that makes it challenging because it's unfortunate for them because I feel like they just lose out on the opportunity to take advantage of the skills that we bring to the table as marketers. And for me, when someone's acting that way, I'm like, well, you're a loss, right? You don't have to use my brilliance. You can just rely on what you have in your brain and keep doing what you're doing, but you're never going to be as successful without your team, right? Your team is what makes you great. And if I've learned anything as a leader, as a marketer, as a business owner, as a woman who's now been in business for 6 years, you are only as good as your weakest team member and you're only as good as your team. Like right now, I'm not stressing about anything because I know my team's got it handled, right? My team's amazing. You have to have that trust, right? You have to have that ability to delegate as well as rely on the skills and expertise that your team brings. And if you think you know everything, wow, how small.
Yeah.
How small your world must be, because I think that's actually like the hallmark of a lack of intelligence, is to think you're the smartest person in the room. I think there's something to learn from everybody.
Ooh, I like that. So I want to just back up really quickly because we talked about you going to law school and then you transitioning to legal marketing. When did you meet your husband?
Yeah. So funny story. I met him after I graduated law school, and he had just gotten out of the Navy, and he was in undergrad his freshman year when I met him. I thought I was some hot shit. Like I was over here like, Miss Lawyer, right? And I meet him and I'm like, oh, I don't know. You're like a freshman in undergrad. And I'm like, a lawyer. Like, this is the bad thing about law school. It inflates your ego where you are not living in reality anymore. And I remember I like call my mom up. I'm like, oh, I met this guy and I like him, but he's a freshman in undergrad. And she's like, well, how old is he? Right? Like, because I'm like 25 at the time. Right? I was like, oh, are you dating like a 18-year-old? Right? Like, I'm like, oh, no. He's my age. But, he's just now starting college. My mom was like, well, maybe he had something going on in his life. What was he doing before college? And I was like, oh, he was in the Navy, like in the military. And she's like, wait, am I understanding this correctly? You're too good for a war hero? And I was like over here, like very humbled, very quickly. And I'm like, well, okay, Mom, all right, I get it. Like, okay, maybe my head is too big right now, right? Like, and I think I needed to be taken down quite a few pegs and reminded that, like, you can date someone who's a freshman in undergrad, Jessica, who's your same age. Like, get off your high horse, right? But I think that's a little bit the danger too of law school. Like when you are competing constantly
Oh, yeah.
against your peers to be the best, you get a totally inflated sense of self. And it's
Yes.
really bad. Really
So,
bad.
so you met your husband, and then was he there when you went through the change of law to legal marketing?
I had already decided at that point, I had moved back to Texas and I had
Okay.
already decided I wasn't going to be a lawyer at that point. And so he like went through that whole of me being like, this is also what's like so crazy about my inflated sense of self. Like I was unemployed. Like I had no job, right? I was looking for jobs and I'm over here like, I can't date you, right? Like I'm like unemployed lawyer, like not very attractive on that end, right? Like it's not like I had a lot going for me. So, again, needed to be brought back down to earth and reminded, humbled, I guess
Yes.
is what I should say. So when I met him, we were both kind of in this like transition phase because he had just like taken a year off and hiked the Appalachian Trail and did all this stuff. He was like, did a bread baking apprenticeship. He did all this stuff after the Navy because the Navy's all consuming.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone that I've met who he served with has told me it's just, you are married to the boat, right? Like that is your life. And so he was just decompressing and trying to like figure out what he wanted to do. And I was in this transition period too. And I think that's why we bonded and we grew together. It was also kind of weird because my grandfather, who's like the equivalent, I guess, of like the most important father figure in my life, he was diagnosed with cancer that same year and he ended up passing away. And it was this weird moment where I met my husband 2 months before my grandfather passed away. And it was like this weird transition moment where it was like the most important man in my life was dying. And this other important man was coming into my life to kind of not necessarily fill the shoes, but just be a partner in my grief and in my moment of just because I was bad in those moments because equivalent of like my father, right? Like passing away. It was awful. And my husband just like really rose to the challenge of like being there and being my partner in it and helping me work through it. And like we went on camping trips, which I'm not a camper, so that says something.
Yeah.
And like had these moments of like deep discussions and stuff about like life and things. And I think it was just really cathartic for me. And we grew together in that moment through that. So.
And then you both decided you wanted to have a baby. And what happened there?
Oh, a lot. So we decided we wanted to have a baby. I guess we got married in, what was it, 2015? Oh, I should know. I should know when I got married. We got married and everything was good. We decided we'll wait like a few years to have kids, right? Get a house, like get established. Both of us were growing, like he had graduated at this point, like he was working. I was, working in my own job. And bam, we get the news that we can't have kids. Oh my God. We basically get the news that I'm infertile, basically. Rocked us to our core. Like I remember literally driving on the highway, like why I decided to call my husband while I'm driving on the highway to deliver this news to him over the phone. He, understandably was very upset by this. And I'm like, well, maybe there's something we can do, maybe. And he's like, we can't like brainstorm this over the phone, like on the way to work, right? Like this is an emotional thing. And so what we ended up doing was we got into therapy. We started meeting with a counselor regularly. Basically, we decided, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to do IVF? Like at the time, IVF wasn't even an option. We had to do donor egg IVF. Basically, that took a lot of time for me to kind of accept because basically I can't produce my own like eggs. And so they were telling me like, hey, your only option if you want to carry a baby is to basically have a donor egg and have like your husband's sperm and then that be your child. And I remember when they were telling me this, I was just like, all of these, like as when you're young, if you've ever wanted to be a mom, you have a certain vision of what it's going to be. And I think it's kind of like when people make birth plans and then the birth plan doesn't go, but like imagine like you thought you were going to have this certain kind of reality and like your kid was going to look a little bit like you and your kid was going to, and then you get this news like, no, like you can't, you're going to have this gift from someone else, an egg basically. In order to make this happen, that person's never going to be genetically connected to you. And that was devastating to me. So therapy helped a lot with that. It took me about 2 years to really process that and kind of get over that because I was very much in my mind like, where there's a will, there's a way. Like I'm going to defy science. And I think it's kind of like one of those things where you try like drinking enough wheatgrass shots that you realize like, no, this like isn't like as much as you want to believe science can change this reality, it's not going to, right? Like you just have to eventually accept if this is what you want to be, a mother, it's not going to go the way you planned and you're going to have to find another route. And I finally kind of got through that and accepted it. And so we went to Spain and we did donor egg IVF in Spain. And the whole time I told my husband, we're going to treat it like it's a vacation that just has hopefully we get knocked up in it, right? Like,
Yeah.
hopefully it's just like one of those, like, even though there's this huge medical procedure we're doing in the midst of it, I want it to be a vacation. I want us to like travel and go to different cities and eat churros and chocolate on the beach, right? Like, I want it to be like a vacation. Like, we flew first class. Like, we went all out. Like, because I was like, if we're doing this, it's going to be our almost like a honeymoon type of thing. And so we did it and it worked. And then we had our daughter, but it took 2 years, a lot of tears, a lot of saving, honestly, if both of us didn't have professional degrees, professional salaries, it's so expensive. It's so astronomically expensive to do donor egg IVF. I don't know that we would be here today. So in many ways, I just feel extremely privileged, extremely lucky, and happy that were afforded that opportunity to go that route.
Yeah, what a blessing. Especially because I know how close you and your daughter are.
Oh, yes. Thick as thieves.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
she's 6 now.
like a little spitfire.
Oh, yeah. She's got lots of thoughts.
Would you ever do it again?
So I asked my husband this because we have another egg on ice, another embryo on ice. And I asked my husband, like, do we want to do it again? And he like turned to me and he goes, I can't emotionally go through that again. I won't. I can't. And I said, okay, we don't have to. We'll keep that. And he's like, egg on ice and decide. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but I can't give it up yet. Like, I'm still in the part where I'm like, I don't know. I just can't. I'm not ready to donate it. I need to just keep it. I don't know. It's weird. And even my doctor's like, eventually you should either transfer it or send it along to someone else, or you can't destroy it. But we'd probably give the gift to someone else just because it is such a gift. Like, when someone gives you something like that, like their egg, and then like you carry, like, I don't know, it just feels like such a gift. And if we could give someone else that gift, why not? So
wow, that is such an amazing story.
It is.
I knew that you had undergone IVF, but I didn't really know the details around your story. So that is just, wow. So you're going through all of this. And what years was this happening?
This was when I was working at the firm as an executive marketing director and executive director. So like literally height of my career, all this wonderful things are happening. And I'm pregnant finally, carrying the baby, have the baby February 2020, go on maternity leave, come back in the office for like a month and a half, and then the world shut down.
Yes.
And I got furloughed. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't know if I can say this, but holy shit.
Yes, yes.
Like, so we brought this beautiful baby into the world, and now how are we going to pay for it, right? Like, at the time I was the primary income earner, and I'm sitting here going, so my salary's gone. We'll be okay on my husband's. Like, thankfully, we've always lived beneath our means, right? But like, still, like, I've always been used to having that kind of provider mindset in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's like, because I saw my mom do it as a single parent, it's hard for me to think like I'm not contributing in some way. So I went on LinkedIn. I put up like this crazy post that I knew the moment I was writing it, it was like the most terrifying thing I'd ever done in like my professional life. But I basically put up, like, I made an image and it said like COVID job seeker. And I listed like all my digital marketing skills, basically how I could help lawyers build relationships online. And I basically said like, this is supposed to only be 2 weeks long, like this whole pandemic thing, right? But it might not be. And if you're a firm that's used to building relationships online, or I'm not exactly how I worded it exactly, but it was like, but if you need help like building relationships online, like reach out to me. And by the end of the week, I had 9 firms that had reached out to me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. Well, and, like, our community showed up for me. Like, they reshared it. I had so many people reshare that. It's one of my top ever posts that I've ever shared on LinkedIn. I think by the end of the week, I had like 10,000 views on it, and like 20, 30. I think the last time I looked, it had 75,000 views or something.
Wow.
Yeah. Of just people who shared it in that moment, and it built the agency overnight. So the rest is kind of history with By Aries. It all got started because of one LinkedIn post. And that's where I'm always like, it's the power of building your network before you need it. It's the power of using social media to connect with others. Like, to this day, I'm sometimes like you don't need an insurance policy. You need a network. Like,
yeah. No, it's so true. And I think it's fascinating that that's the way that your business grew like that overnight. You were fortunate enough that you had been involved in LMA, you had built a network, you had LinkedIn followers.
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of people in the industry who get laid off or something happens and then they try to reach out on LinkedIn.
Doesn't work.
And it doesn't work that way because people can feel whether it feels genuine or sincere, and it seems very transactional
Oh, yeah.
when you come at it that way, and then all of a sudden say, "Oh, I'm going to be a thought leader today," which you can be a thought leader today. Like if you want to start, you can do that, but it takes time to kind of develop, to find your lane, to find your niche, to figure out who your audience, your target demographic is,
Mhm.
and then build content that is not only true to yourself, but also is engaging to other people. And that was something that you were able to have mastered in that time period. And I remember too, I was at a different firm during COVID. And I remember in the beginning, all the lawyers were like, what are we going to do with clients? How are we? I mean, it was like email after email
Yeah.
of lawyers trying to figure out, should we have Zoom calls? Should we try to plan these virtual events that feel like you have avatars where people can walk in and open doors and do stuff? I mean, it was all kinds of brainstorming that went on during COVID about how they were going to reach out and engage with their networks. And that you just happen to have a skill that came at a particular time when people really needed it.
Yeah. Well, and the Nancy Merlins of the world, right? Who
Mhm.
had she's the reason I got into legal marketing. I basically, as a young marketer, tried to follow some of what there's no way I could have been Nancy, right? Like, and I still can't be Nancy, but like trying to mirror this idea of being engaged in my community, being a contributor,
Mhm.
being part of the conversation, being a volunteer. And I've also been a big believer throughout my career of like elevating legal marketing in general, because
Mhm.
I do know it gets that second class citizenship kind of, I don't know, terminology in firms. Like
Yeah.
are you a lawyer or non-lawyer? Like, who cares? Right? Like, I'm a business professional trying to help you generate income. Do you want more money or not? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
does it matter? Right? And I've always been a big believer, again, in the whole this team aspect, right? And if you have this team of business professionals who are trying to help you do that, you have to treat them as equals, right? You have to respect their guidance and trust them. And I feel like that doesn't always go both ways in law firms. And so, as part of being part of our community, I've always tried to be involved in things that gave us opportunities to elevate ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think that's a lot of the reason why hopefully my network showed up, because they saw that in me. They saw that have tried to invest in our own community and
Mhm.
tried to contribute where I could, and they knew me and wanted to see me not fall, right? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like anytime anyone in our community is who's involved and engaged is going through something, I think our community really shows up. I
Yeah,
mean,
they do.
I've seen people donate hundreds and hundreds of dollars to all types of things. People will literally message me things for like Girl Scout cookies. I buy it, right? I don't even
Yeah.
they're totally different states and stuff. Like, it's just part of supporting each other and being
Mhm.
good stewards of our industry, and like helping to show each other that we care. And that's like relationship building 101, right? Like, people can feel when you're not, like, as you said, not genuine, right?
Yeah,
When you're only coming to them when you need something, right? But if you're
definitely.
buying the Girl Scout cookies and you're showing up when they need it, right? It's a totally different ask when you're then in need.
Definitely. And so you had all of this going on during COVID. I remember when you started your business, I was excited for you. And I could not have envisioned at the time how much your business was going to grow.
Neither could
And
I.
and it went from being, and I was like, "Oh, that's so nice. She's starting her own business." Like, I'd seen other people who went off and started consulting or doing
Hmm.
things like that. And I remember, thinking like, "Oh, that's really cool. She went out and, did her own thing." But then you got really successful and your name started showing up everywhere and you were all over LinkedIn and you were at all of the speaking engagements and at all of the conferences and involved in all of the things. And so how I'm just curious personally, as somebody who always wants to learn more about leadership, like what is your leadership philosophy?
Treat people the way you want to be treated. Like, honestly, it's a lot of treat people as equals, treat people with kindness, be
Mhm.
inclusive, be accepting, like not making assumptions. Like that sounds
Mhm.
really, but I mean, my mom was that kind of a leader. So like when I was really young, my mom used to tell me all the time when she started managing people and I got like my first manager job, she's like, everybody has a family. Everybody maybe believes in something or doesn't believe in something. And at the end of the day, their job isn't their life. They have
Mhm.
a life outside of it. And if when they show up and they're having a hard day because something's going wrong in their life, if you show up as the leader who's like, you need to be working, is you're not going to want to work for that type of a leader.
Mhm.
So why, so my mom had always that kind of very people first mentality about leadership. And I think she very much instilled that in me when I first became a manager. And even when I was just growing up, like, I mean, I remember when I got to be like, you picked first, like it was always like, well, yes, you got picked first for speech and debate, which of course I was always picked first for like the nerdy stuff, right? Not the like athletic things, but like, picked first on the speech and debate team, but then also making sure that everyone had an opportunity to be seen and heard, right?
Mhm.
I think I learned a lot of that from my mom. And I think that's largely just her leadership style rubbing off on me of treating people, whether it be, the person serving you water, right? Your waiter at a restaurant
Mhm.
or the CEO of the company, you treat both with respect, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's partly how my mom was raised as well. Like her family was very much like that too. They were farmers, right? My grandmother has a high school education, but I
Mhm.
remember like any time I had to go speak for a jury or anything like in trial at or whatever, I remember I would always try to speak to the audience like I was talking to my grandma because I deeply respect her, but I also realize she only has, 12th grade education. So if I make it simple enough for her and accessible enough and approachable enough for her, it means that I haven't intimidated her and I've made it into something that she can understand and she's much more likely to be on my side. And so that's how I kind of try to approach everything,
Mhm.
no matter who you are, trying to make it approachable, try to make it accessible. Try to remember I don't know where you come from or if I say some really complicated vocabulary word, I might lose you along the way and you're not going to ask
Mhm.
because you're going to be intimidated by that. So I've just tried to always be that kind of communicator and treat people in that way. Always think about my grandmother because she was
Yeah.
such an influential person in my life because when I was a child, my mom, when she went to night school, my grandparents watched me and they had a big influence on how I kind of approached the world because they were very much salt of the earth people,
Mhm.
farmers, um, you respect God and you respect this house, right?
Yes.
And you respect the earth, right? So just a very different kind of experience in that sense, growing up where you were not better than anybody, no matter
Mhm.
how many degrees you had in that house.
Yes, I love that.
So
I
yeah,
love that, and that's probably a reason why you were so successful in a law firm environment is because you were able to separate the pomp and circumstance from the regular everyday kind of, you were grounded in those environments, and I think
try to
that
be.
yes, I
I
think
did have a big head at one point. So just to remind you all of that story.
but you got with your husband,
Yes,
so, you made it. It's like
I did. I didn't blow it too
and I love
badly.
hearing about him. He's an engineer, and
Yes.
so I love hearing about his little quirks.
Oh my God, many,
Yes.
many. Like he gets so frustrated when I try to tell people what he does because I don't really know what he does, and I'm like something to do with something and something. He's like, oh my God, it's so like I remember one time. So he loves science. He was trying to explain like black holes to me,
Mhm.
and I was like, I don't understand. Like I was so confused, and he finally just looked at me and goes, I mean this in the nicest way possible. I think you're so smart, but maybe you're just too dumb to understand this. And I was like, oh my God. I was so
Oh,
mad at him. And so it's like, and he's like, I shouldn't have said that, should I? And I was like, no, you should not have
no.
said that. I was like, but this was like after 2 hours of me being
Yes.
so confused, like trying to understand Interstellar, guys. Okay. Like I love sci-fi, but I was so lost in that movie.
Yes.
So like,
Yes.
yeah. So there's just something I know my limits, right? Go to
Yeah.
the experts on the things that are beyond you.
For people that are curious about what it is you do, what is it that you do?
Oh, so I run an agency, by Aries, and we predominantly do social media marketing, but we also do AI trainings for lawyers and legal marketers. And lately, we've been really focused on really helping legal marketers, especially create AI workflows, and really understand how to use AI within content strategy, content marketing, and
Mm-hmm.
just elevating what they do. I, worked in house for many years as a legal marketer, and the resources, the limited resources that are available to legal marketers, yet the expectation of what they're supposed to deliver is so high. And I just see a lot of opportunity for AI to streamline some of that, make it easier, make us better, faster, and elevate the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we do a lot of lately. We also do a ton of social media content, ghostwriting, LinkedIn content, that kind of stuff for lawyers, and work with them to just really elevate their brand and help them build the right types of relationships. So a lot of like what I did to actually build by Aries, we're now teaching lawyers how to do that and leverage that on LinkedIn.
And I love that you have a focus also on the legal marketers. It's not just about how to make the lawyers successful, it's how can you make legal BD and legal marketers successful as well. I know your training on AI has been really helpful for me. I still need to schedule our next session. But it's been so helpful, and it's really opened up my eyes to the possibilities with AI,
Thank
that
you.
what kind of things that we could be doing. And I feel like legal marketers are often left out.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's all of these expectations that people just come in knowing how to do things. But a lot of times firms don't provide the training,
Mm-mm.
or they won't invest in their marketing and business development teams to actually get them to the level that they need them to operate at.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're having a workforce that is not very prepared
Mm-mm.
to be able to take things at firms to the next level. And where you come in, you've done all kinds of workshops, you do all kinds of speaking engagements. I just spoke with you 2 weeks
Yep.
ago on practical uses for AI and creating AI workflows at an LMA conference, which was a lot of fun. I learned a lot even just through that process, which I thought was really cool. But if people wanted to find you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, you can follow me on LinkedIn because I
Hmm.
think that's definitely where I'm most active. But then, our website, places like that. I would say our newsletter lately has been getting a lot of traction
Hmm.
just because we write very practically. I really try to make sure our newsletter has something tangible in it that
Yes.
someone could take and save or use, like a prompt or a workflow. Like this last one that we had come out just this past week actually had a whole thing on how to use Claude Cowork
Mm.
to create presentations from a brand template. So the like number one thing I hear from legal marketers is there a way to use my own brand template with AI and get like a whole deck built?
Hmm.
Yes, there is. You can use Claude Cowork to do that. So that's in our newsletter this past week. Just as an example, trying to create tutorials and examples of real world use cases that legal marketers might be asked to do and actually use AI to speed up the process, make them more efficient, give them time to work on other things that are just as important or respond to emails from lawyers, right?
Yeah.
And build those relationships with lawyers because so much of legal marketers kind of brand capital is built through those relationships they build with the lawyers.
Hmm.
And that's not just the deliverable they're providing, it's also the relationships they're building. And so if they can have more time to build those relationships and still deliver a high quality product, to me, that's a win-win.
Oh, definitely. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, I think I think the best advice I've been given is to play big and
Mm.
to not play small. I think it's really easy, especially for women, to try to make ourselves smaller in certain spaces. And my mom was never a believer in that. Like, my mom was always the type who you can be anything, you can do anything. And I like to say my inner voice is like Beyonce. She's like, yeah, I can do anything. Like, I don't have imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I've never had it. My inner voice has always been my biggest cheerleader. It's rare for me to feel like I can't achieve something. And I think that's also what was so hard, like with my IVF journey, to accept, and why I needed so much therapy for it, because I very much had that kind of mindset of mind over matter type.
Hmm.
It's hard to accept sometimes that even you can't change those outcomes. But I also think that's why I was open to the idea of doing something like donor egg IVF and not being afraid of that. Right. So
Hmm.
I think there's so much of that journey of playing big that requires you to be open to new ideas and open to new things when things don't go your way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If someone out there is contemplating a career path change, a career pivot, we'll say, or wants to start their own company and be a
Mhm.
boss lady like you, What advice would you give them?
Build a better plan than I did. Mine was, I mean, I wish I had the foresight to know that was coming down the road for me because I
Mhm.
would have been a much more strategic in the way I kind of launched the business and did everything. I felt like the business came before I had it all figured out.
Mm.
Um, and I think there's ways you can approach it that are less scary than that. Because I literally was trying to deliver services at the same time I was trying to set up like an email domain, right? Like,
Yeah.
like that's not the most ideal situation. I also think too, just kind of really understanding how taxes and finances and profitability works. Like, I'm a big believer in like the profit first model of like pay yourself first and have the right money and reserves and things. Really understanding finance
Mhm.
I think is a big part of running a business and understanding how to set your rates, not to be afraid to ask for. I mean, that's like the number one thing when consultants come to me and they launch, they ask like, how should I set my rates?
Mhm.
And I'm always like, set them so high that like until people start telling you no, right? Like that's kind of
Yeah.
my philosophy. Until people start turning me down, I'm going to set them and like just go from there because yeah, other people are setting them too, right? And that's kind of will tell you what the market will bear, which if
Yeah.
you have to have enough volume of leads for that, like coming in for that to work. If you don't, then that makes it a bit more challenging. But I came from a lead gen type firm, so lead gen comes naturally to me.
Mhm.
I think that's also something that I see from a lot of consultants or people who want to get into the market. They don't understand lead gen because they've worked in B2B for so long.
Yeah.
So really understanding lead gen, really understanding the importance of visibility, really understanding the importance of brand recognition. Because I think that's an area where I see a lot of the new consultants struggle with. They're uncomfortable showing up. And
Mhm.
if you're uncomfortable showing up, you're never going to have business. Because I like to say people can't hire you if they don't know you exist.
Mm.
So,
Oh, I love it.
mhm.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share or that you think would be helpful or valuable for the listeners?
Well, I think right now in particular, this is like a really important moment for legal marketers to invest in themselves
Mhm.
and to not play small and to be really focused on learning their areas, domains of expertise, but also learning AI. Like,
Mhm.
I have some marketers who come to me and say, I'm not going to use AI for XYZ reason. I respect those reasons, but I also think it's like, it's here, it's not going anywhere. And I really believe if you're not learning or engaging or trying to understand the tools, it does only hold you back in the end. My sister-in-law gave me a good like example of this, I guess in the early like 1980s, 1970s, late 1970s, early 1980s, a lot of women didn't invest in the stock market. One, because they weren't allowed to, but then once they were told it was like a man's game and like women shouldn't be doing it. And so as a result, many women didn't invest in the stock market and they lost out on some of the most massive gains in the history of the stock market. And it held them back in wealth for like the rest of the years. I feel like we're in that kind of moment with AI that if you're refusing to participate
Mhm.
because you think XYZ, it's gonna hold you back later down the line in ways that are gonna be really systemic and hard to overcome later. So
Yeah.
if I could give any advice, it would be at least try to play with it once a week or learn something, see how it interacts. You don't necessarily, like if your firm doesn't allow you to do it, obviously don't do anything against the AI policies at your firm, but at least use it in your personal life if you can to just experiment and understand how it works because it isn't going anywhere. It's only going to keep growing.
That's great, great advice. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. I got to learn more about you, more from outside of our board meeting, and hear more about your story, which I think is fascinating. And I just think you're a boss. So
Thank
I
you.
think I'm so excited to be able to share your story with other people and to give them encouragement and motivation and inspiration to be able to start their own thing or to not be afraid to change careers after investing a lot of time and money going in one direction. And to also be nice to their future husbands because you just never know.
Yeah, don't say no
Yes.
before you say yes.
I'm
So
going to be
true.
like, so he's a war hero? Like, you're
Well,
too
just to
good for a war
have
hero?
some humility, right? Like come
Yes.
back down to earth, right?
Yes.
No matter how
Yes.
great you are.
I will take that advice from you for my dating, my lack of a dating situation. So,
I mean, I've been happily married for 10 plus years. So
yes,
just keep that in mind. Gone through a lot.
that is awesome. Well, thank you so much to everyone who's joined us, who has listened to this podcast today or is watching us on YouTube. Please make sure to subscribe, to like, to share. If this conversation resonates for you, we'd appreciate it if you would share it with other people who might get value from it. So thanks again for tuning in, and we hope to see you for the next episode.